Hello and welcome to the on-demand session. Today we are going to talk about results management. I'm going to be a FASI. My name is Ingrid and I'm a PhD of ICT Result for the term 2021. So we are going to start where it's important to have the good management of the results for the organization. And there are 4 points for this. The first point is that you manage to have efficient processes that help for the core of the organization. Second, all organizations need to have good financial state. And so by having good results management, we are managing financial accounts through the organization. And this way, we manage to have good financial sustainability. The third point, because when we have results management and people are achieving their goals, they are feeling that they are developing, and therefore other people who are working with them feel the same way. In this way, we can build a stronger organizational culture. And the fourth point, we are able to nurture the development of each other because when we have good processes in place and when we manage to achieve our results, it means that we also manage to have good management process of our people. So have good HR process, have a good culture, strong culture is keeping people inside the organization. So this way we are also able to contribute to the development of each other, which is one of the most important things as well. So basically for the management of results, we have these 4 main points that are actually very, very valuable for each organization. And ISIC is included and your local components as well. What is included therefore in the management of operations? Because that's where we have most of our results coming from, which is like approvals, or if you're working with finance, probably go to the financial accounts. If you're working with PMs, probably going to be things related to people. But overall, we are going to talk more deeply about operations. So there are several points that are included in the management of operations. The first point is the planning. So basically, as part of the executive board of your local committee, you need to have a very good planning and a very detailed planning of the actions that you're going to have overall for your management term, but also for achieving the actual results in your area. The second point is to have the processes built. So all the goods, the production of the goods and the services in the world, they need to have very good and strong processes settled in place and have them effective. The same goes to ISIC, so as the organization that is providing basic services, the service of leadership development for the exchange participants, we need to have our strong processes settled in place and to have them repeated in the same quality. The third one is the efficiency. So basically, we always have issues to solve and the bottlenecks to tackle. This way, we know that we don't have resources to tackle everything. So as a person who is managing the resources and operations in the local committee, we also need to pay attention to that. So how to do it efficiently with the current resources and how to tackle these bottlenecks. The fourth one is the control of costs. Basically, we know that the financial sustainability is something extremely important for the organization, for any organization, any enterprise in the world, and it's extremely important to ISIC as the organization and to your local committee. And it makes sense for us to talk deeply about that and to really plan the projects and the expenses and the incomes for each product. So this is something that you need to track deeply if your operations with your finance, and if your finance, you need to track this very much with the people who are taking care of operations. The fifth one is the quality. Obviously, the organizations that are not bringing good quality, they're not able to exist for a long time. So as the organization, we have to really take care of the thing which is quality, which is the customer experience, and make sure that the satisfaction of our exchange participant is high. Because it's directly influencing to the reputation of ISIC as a whole organization in the world, but also of the reputation to your local community. The sixth one is constant improvement. As we already talked about tackling the bottlenecks, it's important for us to always be the track of striving for excellence, which is one of the values of ISIC. So for us to constantly have this iteration process of understanding what our bottlenecks are and how to tackle them. And the last point, the seventh one, is growth. So by executing our actions properly and constantly, we are able to build the results. And by growth here, it's not only meant the growth as like we understand as operational growth, but also as the growth for the organization and the development of its people. All of these 7 points there from the Harvard Business Review. If you want, you can check them in more details. But this is the overview, what is included inside the management of operations, and therefore inside the management of results. And our focus here is to manage these three things all together, which is people, which is the basis. This is where any organization starts from. Then, which is the product, and right, which is processes. And the processes again go to people. So all these three things are very deeply connected, and we cannot manage one without the other. So we are going to start from phase one, and we are going to talk about our product. What is inside this? When we talk about our product and the importance to have a product here, we talk about the strategy of the product, which has to take into account the external necessity and the internal offer. So basically, the external necessity, for example, when we talk about global volunteer, would be the necessity to improve the world and to tackle social issues. The internal offer we have, let's say, we work on the quality education because we have people that are going to help teach a certain language in the country. And therefore, by having these things together, we're able to create a certain purpose. The example of global volunteer was just an example. It can go to a lot of other things, and the membership is soon is going to be a product as well. So we are going to include more things in terms of the membership here too. The main point here is that the strategy of the product has to take both sides into account, external needs and what we can offer as the organization. And this way we can actually create a focus and have the specialization, the things that we are going to promote the most when we talk about our customers. And for phase two, we have something which is called processes. So how should we manage our product to actually work when we already have things like the purpose, the business model, business canvas set in place. In terms of processes, how do we achieve operational excellence? We have 3 points in this. First one is operational timeline. For us to really look close on the operational timeline, because that's something we cannot miss, we cannot get time back. So that's something we really need to look into constantly and be sure we are getting up with that. So all of the processes, they have to correspond to the current operational timeline. The second thing is the management of the pipeline. What's included here are these 2 points. First one is the projection of the results, because when we talk here about pipeline, we don't mean the membership pipeline, but here we mean the pipeline of the results. The first thing, projection of the results, basically what we call our planning, what we already did before for now. And the second thing is improvement of the results, the constant iteration processes that we are having, asking ourselves 2 whys for each problem and 2 whys of those problems, and then studying the core of the problem and how to work on it. And the third point is the team management. Still, we talk about the people here because obviously, if we want to have operational pipeline, if we want to have the pipeline to have our results, we need to make sure that our HR processes are in place, our people are happy, and they understand what to do. And the third point is the processes routines, which is basically the routines of customer flow, because also operational excellence is about how we manage our selection processes, our CX processes, and everything else. Because we need to do it also in a disciplined way, in a structured way, and make sure our customer is already having this, feeling this operational excellence and satisfaction from the very first touch point with us. And I have 2 points here just to reinforce about these things that we just talked about operational excellence. So when we define things like results, like projection of results in our planning and the improvement of results, 2 points come to my mind. The first one is if you can't measure it, you can manage it. So obviously, if you have the approvals planned for each month, that's something you can manage already because you can measure it. You can open Excel, you can open Core, and you can see how many you're having. But this also goes to other results. So if you're setting some strategy, it's significantly important that you're going to put the results that you can constantly track, at least with monthly frequency. And the second point is if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. So yeah, there are 2 points. If you cannot measure it, you cannot do 2 things. You cannot manage it, you cannot improve it. So it doesn't make sense. And for us to manage results and to improve results, we need to be able to measure these things. So always make sure that the key results you put in your planning are going to be very, very measurable. And the last phase, phase 3, it's about people. Here we have 4 basic steps about people. First step is basically you're building the profile of the HR you want to have in your area. For example, if you're OGT, you know that your people need to be somehow familiar with the market. And they need to understand the tendencies of the market to be able to approach the people. So this is something that has to come according to the strategy of your area. So according to the strategy of your area, you build the profile of the person you want to see inside your team, inside your area, inside your TV, and everything else. The second point is obviously the selection. The selection has to happen according to your operational timeline. Obviously, you cannot do the selection process in April because April is the month where you need to have peak of performance. So there's something that you have with your operations, is synergy with your PM earlier to make sure that you have the selection process in time. And the third one is induction. So this is something that's happening according to the processes of the product. So all the materials that you're giving to the people, they are based on what they need to know about the product, about the basics, about how to sell it, about the benefits inside the product, about the customer flow management and the specifics depending on the product and everything else. So the people, they have to be trained according to the strategies that you're having for the processes and for the product. And the last thing is the routine. And the routine has to be also according to your operational routine, obviously, because if you're having, for example, to contact customers every day, then the routine of your area has to be according to this. So you need to have the people that are going to be available every day to contact the customers. And routine is very essential. That's why it's like at the top of all other things. Because even if you have a good profile, there are people in your area, even if you have good selection, even if you have good induction, it's crucial to set the right routine that's going to work for your area and going to lead people to achieve results. And to end it, pretty much, I would like to bring four call to actions, the main ones after all these three phases we just went through. The first one, understand the strategy of your area. First of all, obviously, you build it. You understand what you want to make during the term, and you need to have these things very clearly in details in your mind, and also preferably on the spreadsheet that you're having for the planning to understand what actual things you want to implement. The second one, manage and improve the conversions. Conversions are very important, and we can actually show you a lot if you look deeply into that. Because basically, even the conversion from a open, like sign up to applicant, can also tell you a lot about the process that you're having and the routines of your people and what you need to improve. The third one, build your routine. Please do it as soon as possible, as soon as you're starting to work with the new people in your area, because that's going to be something extremely crucial that's going to lead you to results. And the fourth one, align your strategies with PM. If you're operations, if you're PM, please align your strategies somehow with operations, because it's super interconnected and it's not possible for us to separate these two things because the people are the main force that bringing things and improving things. And just wanted to give you some tips in terms of the routine because I know it can be hard when you're in the VP and you're coming to the area and you're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. So there are some minimums that are brought here, the routines that you need to have as the area. As the area, you need to have the meeting with the team, you need to have the meeting with your area, you need to have the tracking with your team leaders, you need to have RG, you need to have therapy meetings, and you need to have one-to-ones. The frequency of these things are normally dependent on you or dependent on how your executive board decides them. And the routines as a VP are this. First of all, as the head, obviously the things that you're having constantly with your MC monthly, and then one-to-ones either with the MC or with the consultant. Then if your operations is also chats with IR partners. It's also the synergies because all of us have synergies and synergies are super, super important. So make sure to have also strategies and routines based on this. Then it's analysis of the data. Normally it has to happen weekly, but it highly depends on the kind of data you want to track. If it's just going to be an achievement, obviously that's something you can track daily, you can track weekly, and you can make certain conclusions from this and certain action steps. But make sure also to look into other data, which is conversions, which is also plan achievement with IR, which is also process time and other things that you might find important. And the last thing, make sure to have the space for problems and solutions. It can be together with your EB or the person from your EB that you're most close with operational, or it can be with your team leaders of your area, or it can be with your whole area, depending on their needs. Make sure to be also flexible about this. There is no point in making it strict or something like that. Depending on this, it's very still important to have this space constantly and make sure the things that you're going to have after the space as action steps are going to be implemented. And lastly, I want to tell you is that success is the results of all of these small steps made repetitive. So when you complete all of this routine, you put it all together and you repeat it constantly and you make the spaces, you make these meetings, you make this chat and everything like that, you managed to achieve success because you made this series of repetitive actions that were to this. And this is the end of this on-demand space about results management. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.